All right, let's jump right in. We all tend to think of a contract as just, well, paperwork, right? It's the last thing you sign when a deal is done. But what if that's completely backwards? Today, we're going to flip the script on how you see your contracts. We're talking about transforming them from a simple formality into your business's most critical line of defense, a fortress.
This right here, this is the whole mind shift. The moment that ink dries on the page, that's not the finish line. Nope. That's the starting gun for the real work. Protecting your company when things, and let's be real, they often do, go off the rails.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Even the most buttoned-up agreements can have these hidden weaknesses. Tiny little oversights or phrases that seem harmless but can explode into huge, expensive problems later. They're like invisible cracks in your company's armor.
So that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Well, in this explainer, we're basically going to hand you the map. We're going to show you exactly where those cracks are usually hiding and, more importantly, how to seal them up for good.
Okay, first things first. We have to change the fundamental way we look at a contract. Let's stop seeing it as just a record of what everyone agreed to. Instead, think of it as a detailed map of everything that could possibly go wrong. It's your secret weapon for managing crises before they even happen.
So here's the bottom line. A truly strong contract isn't about hoping for the best. It's about meticulously, almost obsessively, planning for the worst. Every single clause should be answering the question, okay, what's our game plan if this specific thing goes completely sideways?
So where do these dangerous cracks usually hide? That brings us right to our second point. The devil is always, always in the details. Because you see, the biggest risks almost always come disguised as harmless, everyday, vague language. Just look at this. This slide really lays it all out. A phrase like reasonable time frame means absolutely nothing when you're in a dispute. But within 30 calendar days, that is a brick wall. Due quality is just an open invitation to argue for weeks. But compliant with ISO 901 standards, that's a fact you could prove. This isn't about being picky with words. It's about systematically removing any wiggle room that could be used against you later. All right, let's talk money. Because in today's world with its volatile economy, a contract with a fixed price can become a massive liability. You absolutely have to build in some financial shock absorbers.
I mean, just think about it for a second. Inflation, crazy supply chain costs, currencies going up and down. Any one of these can turn a great deal into a total disaster. A static price just pretends none of that exists, and honestly, it's one of the biggest landmines you can possibly step on in a contract.
So how do you defuse that ticking bomb? Well, you've got two main tools in your arsenal. First, you can use formula-based pricing, which basically links the price to something objective, like a specific commodity index. But second, and this one is so important, are what we call review triggers. And this is just brilliant. A trigger is basically a pre-agreed alarm bell. So for example, you could say if the cost of a key raw material jumps by more than, say, 15%, that trigger gets pulled. And when it does, both of you are contractually forced to come back to the table and rework the price. It stops a bad situation from blowing up the entire contract. Okay, now let's talk about the really big stuff, the disasters. What happens when something truly catastrophic and unexpected hits? This is all about the force majeure or act of God clause. And believe me, it's probably one of the most lazily written parts of most contracts out there.
Yeah, just writing circumstances beyond our control is a recipe for disaster. It's just not good enough anymore. If the last few years have taught us anything, it's that you have to be super specific. Your contract needs to spell it out. What counts? A nationwide cyber attack, a pandemic, a massive energy blackout? You have to define it ahead of time so you're not arguing about it in the middle of a 5-alarm fire.
And what about when things go wrong and it's not an act of God? If one side just plain fails to deliver, the penalties can't just be a slap on the wrist. They need to be meaningful. A real deterrent that covers not just your costs, but your lost profits. And here's the key. They have to be mirrored. They have to apply equally to both sides. This shows fairness, and it shows that you're confident you can hold up your end of the bargain too. Sometimes a business relationship just doesn't work out. And the absolute worst kind of contract is one you can't get out of. That's why every single agreement you sign needs a crystal clear, pre-planned exit strategy. We call it the civilized divorce.
This clause right here is your ultimate safety net. What it means is you don't have to prove the other side did anything wrong. If the deal just isn't right for your business anymore, you can pull this cord, give the agreed-upon notice, say 30 or 60 days, and walk away clean. It is an incredibly powerful tool for keeping control.
But a good escape hatch isn't just a door. It's a whole protocol for walking through it. You need to define exactly how notice is given, so there are no arguments. You need a super clear process for settling up all the accounts, so no money or property is left hanging. And critically, you've got to uphold confidentiality, making sure your secrets stay secret long after the deal is over.
And speaking of confidentiality, that obligation to protect sensitive information doesn't just vanish when the contract ends. A rock-solid agreement will specify that those promises continue for a long time. We're typically talking 3 to 5 years after the partnership is officially dissolved.
So, as we wrap all of this up, it really just boils down to one single guiding philosophy. And it's not about being pessimistic, it's about being a pro. It is the absolute core principle of turning that piece of paper into a real fortress.
And here it is. This is the ultimate takeaway, the principle of presumed problems. Every clause, every word, every number in that document needs to be stress-tested against the absolute worst-case scenario. When you approach your contracts this way, you're not just signing a deal, you're literally securing the future of your company.
So I'm going to leave you with this one question. The next time you have an agreement sitting on your desk, ready to be signed, I want you to ask yourself, is this just a formality, a record of my hopes? Or is it a fortress, built and ready to withstand whatever comes next? Because the choice and the power to build it is all yours.